Hi, everyone. Welcome to everybody from Southern Utah. I know we have a few more hopping on, so why don't, before I dive in, how about, I think let's start off with a really wonderful message from Governor Cox that he had provided for us for this statewide launch that we had on April 7th. And he just nails the message on exactly what we're trying to do. So why don't we start off with Governor Cox?
Utah has the proud distinction of leading the way for our nation in so many ways, with our healthcare systems, our commitment to families, our work to end homelessness, our universities and their research, our tech transfer and entrepreneurial spirit, and so much more. But there is a growing group of individuals and families in all of our communities who face extraordinary challenges, often unnoticed and too often alone. Autism is a diagnosis that affects not only the individual, but multiple generations of families. Parents, siblings, grandparents, all of you face the challenges of accessing early support that will give your child the best chance to realize his or her unique and exceptional potential. But when that son or daughter turns 22, we know that most support ends. We know that one or both parents often must leave their career because there are not enough supportive housing opportunities, supportive employment situations, or social or recreational programs. We also know that 85% will live at home their entire lives, and then when their parent or caregiver dies, some may become homeless. Others will be assigned to the next available bed, removed from the only community and contacts they've ever known in their lives. As such, we face both a humanitarian and an economic crisis. When any individual does not reach his or her potential, we are all impacted. Healthcare costs rise, support needs to rise. Talents are missing from the workplace, homelessness increases. But worst of all, families face the lifelong nightmare of wondering who will care for their adult child when they no longer can. But it doesn't have to be this way, and Utah knows what to do. As governor, I lend my full support to a new collective action effort to change the future for all adults with autism and their families here in Utah. We especially welcome the involvement of Madison House Autism Foundation, one of the first national organizations to dedicate its work to adults on the spectrum and their families. Our goals for this Autism After 21 initiative are to replicate the exemplary projects that already exist in our state, learn from national research, best practices and emerging concepts, work together to envision and build inclusive communities across our state, and develop a statewide blueprint that can lead the way for other states, other families, and other communities. Now, a young woman here in Utah who is on the spectrum spoke about the isolation that she and her autistic brother feel, their desire to connect and contribute, and their capacity to do so if the rest of us find the way to inclusion. She said, "We have the capacity to know where we are wanted." And then she went on to say, "Just because we don't show it doesn't mean we don't love you back." That is our goal with this initiative. With this work, we take another important step to achieving greater equity and inclusion for all Utahns. Thank you to all of you taking part in this statewide virtual call to ensure that all our communities are represented, involved, engaged, and moving toward interconnectedness. I have every confidence that with all of you collaborating with Madison House Autism Foundation, the state of Utah will produce the blueprint for all other states to follow.
Thank you so much to Governor Cox for his enthusiastic understanding of what this initiative is. This is Autism After 21, the Utah initiative. And as the governor mentioned, this is a blueprint for all other states to follow. So thank you to Southern Utah for joining us today. We've already been on calls with Logan, Ogden, Salt Lake, Provo. And of course, this is such an important initiative for us to include all local areas, rural and urban. So we appreciate you being on this call, and we are recording this because we know that there are many people that wanted to be on the call and for one reason or another had conflicts. And so we are excited to make sure that everyone gets a chance to see what we are launching. And this is a 3-year initiative. It's a 3-year pilot. First in the nation to comprehensively work across all sectors, including business and education, healthcare, government, community, faith-based leaders, to make sure that we get this right for our Utah adults with autism and their families. Let me back up just a little bit and introduce myself. I'm Charlene Wells, and I'm on the advisory board for the Madison House Autism Foundation, based in DC area, but founded by Utahns Greg and Jolynn Prince. Madison House is on the national and international stage, leading the way very specifically in something that has fallen through the cracks. What happens to our autistic citizens after the age of 21? When educational services end, families are left to fend for themselves. And we need to do something about that as a community. Nationally, there are roughly 30 million people impacted by autism spectrum disorder. And Utah is one of the highest rates, as you probably already know. The lack of opportunities for adults when they age out of school is just too large for families to address on their own. And so that's why you've been invited to be part of this call. We need your leadership and hospitable communities that Utah is so well known for, to interconnect and support and understand the complexity of what we're dealing with. And we are a very compassionate, community-oriented, solution-minded state. So we are the perfect place to launch this big initiative. And there's so many great things already happening in St. George and Cedar City and in the rural and the urban areas down there. And we really want to make sure we're sharing all the great things that you're already doing and connecting it to different parts of the state. And maybe there's something in Logan that St. George would want to do, or vice versa. So this is important that we stay connected. But every community is different. That's why we're really focusing on the local side of things, but making sure that we make it a statewide blueprint. I am so excited to introduce the founder of Madison House Foundation. I'm kind of skipping ahead here on a few things, but it's so important for her to help us set the stage of why this is so unique here in Utah and why it matters so much. The co-founder of the internationally recognized Madison House Autism Foundation is Jolynn Prince. And Jolynn and her husband, Dr. Gregory Prince, live in Utah and Maryland. They have a home right there in St. George, and are parents of 3 children, including 31-year-old Madison, who is on the spectrum. And the Princes were featured in Deseret News a couple of years ago. You may have seen for their groundbreaking work to spotlight and address the major crisis that faces all families who have a loved one with autism after the age of 21. Jolynn has been a national voice for adults with autism and their families for decades. And when she founded the foundation in 2008, it was the first national organization to focus solely on the issues and challenges and opportunities for adults on the spectrum. That vision has led to policy changes at the national level and a lot of research that has been shared freely with stakeholders. And of course, guidance to hundreds of groups and families wanting to start their own inclusive housing project. And Madison House Autism Foundation created the National Awareness Campaign leading to National Autism After 21 Day on April 21st, appropriately enough. Jolynn was selected to be part of the Interagency Autism Coordinating Committee on the National Institutes of Health. She has served on the advisory board for Johns Hopkins School of Education and sits on several boards for universities right here in Utah. She has spoken at the United Nations, at Voice of America, consulted on an NBC documentary on adult autism, participated in the White House Summit on Autism, presented at TED Global in Oxford, and was recognized as National Mother of the Year. And in her spare time, by the way, she is a world-class photojournalist documenting humanitarian efforts globally. She has traveled to more than 72 countries, documenting the work of numerous NGOs. It is such an honor to turn the time now over to Jolynn. Hi, Jolynn.
Hi. I actually feel like I'm kind of at home. My husband is spending about half of his time in St. George and half time here in Maryland. And I'm hearing an interesting sound I've never heard before. Can anybody hear that?
Yeah, we do.
It sounds like somebody is shaving their head. All right, maybe it stopped. Well, with that, I am so pleased to be here with you all today. You are part of something that is so very, very important. Our organization has been around for about 13 years, and we're one of the first organizations in the country to work with the lifespan issues of adults with autism. And we have been absolutely astounded with the magnitude of work that needs to be done in this arena. We have you here as thought leaders from around the community because we need you, your front line on this in so many ways. You are people that lead thought, that are respected in the community. You have access to committees or serve on committees. You're in a position to employ. You may know business people. You may have people as your constituents. There are so many different ways that you all have influence. And we want you to step forward to make this a new normal within your community, that the acceptance and the understanding of adults with autism and their families is something that will become commonplace and just a given. I know how compassionate St. George can be. I know the spirit of St. George. My husband went to school there, and I have had family stories for ages about how many incredible things have happened in St. George and how many incredible people there are from St. George. And so you're a logical place to be leaders in this. And we want to have you all informed, and we would like to ask a few things of you. Over the next while, we would like to have a survey, and we'd like to have you participate in it. We'll probably be doing it 3 times. We've got a 3-year initial launch on this program, and we would like to assess things in the beginning, in the middle, and then toward the end of this particular phase. And we hope this goes on for a long time because people are going to need to be educated along the way. This is going to be an ongoing situation. It's like teaching somebody to be a citizen, you teach one group and then there's other people coming up. And so we hope things will continue to go on. But we would like to have you fill out these surveys, and we will be coming to you. We will be coming to those that we're looking at you as the outer bubble for the larger community, and that within that, there's also the autism community. It's not as large, and it doesn't have necessarily the same social power because so many of the people in it are contending with the issues of everyday life. And parents are concerned with taking care of their loved ones. And so sometimes it's very hard to be involved in community situations like you're involved in. But we will be coming in to have surveys of this particular population as well. And then we will also step into an arena that is part of our foundation, and that's our housing area. And if there's a desire to do housing in your area for individuals on the spectrum and related disabilities, we have the foremost expert that happens to be part of our foundation. And she is absolutely wonderful. You'll meet her in just a few moments, and she'll be talking to you about things. But we see so much potential in St. George, and the idea of having an open and welcoming community and a compassionate community. I've seen so many things in Ivans where there have been things that have been opening up there and different populations that have been welcomed. The adult autism population is somewhat invisible. There's no white canes, there's no wheelchairs. Unless somebody has another situation along with it. So sometimes we don't see the people that are our neighbors, our constituents, and the people that need to have assistance because it can be very challenging navigating adulthood. And when there are very few supports in a community, we want you to look at the areas where you can make a difference. If it can be in developing parks that might have an area that is more sensory friendly. What if you had an area where there are some benches with bushes on maybe 3 sides so somebody can sit and see what's going on in the community without having the barrage of activity going on the periphery? I think it could help individuals with autism, but it may also help the elderly, maybe even that mother with young children or somebody taking a nap on their lap. We know that a lot of the things that we will do will be kind of like the curb cut, where the curb cut started so people with disabilities could go from one side of the street to the other and not trip on the curb. But just yesterday, I used a curb cut as I was going into the grocery store. I was able to take my shopping cart easily up on the curb and into the store. And so people with shopping carts, with carriages, with vendors, suitcases, have all benefited from something that was designed for one population. I think as we go along this path, we'll find that there will be many benefits throughout the population as we work and focus on this particular arena. I welcome you aboard. I want to talk with each one of you and get to know more of you. And I happen to see that my husband has just come on board. I see his little character up there. He's been on a Zoom call with his business. But we are proud to have a home in St. George, and we've worked with a lot of you there and know a lot of you very well. And we would like to have you as a hub with the good work that is going on. And I see so many names. I see Kenny, I see Glenda. And the one other thing I wanted to mention, we're not coming in to bring ideas and force anything on anybody. We want to look around the state and see the best things that are going on. Like you've got something Techies for Life in St. George. It's a wonderful program working with individuals who have a particular interest in computers and programming. If somebody in another part of the state would like to learn how to do that or have that happen in their community, maybe there's lessons that can be shared. And that goes across the board, that we may not need to invent anything, but shine a light on the good things that are happening in Utah, magnify those things, and become a blueprint for the nation. We would like to have this information gathered so other states can look at us and see what is happening in Utah. Along with that, I would like to introduce a short clip here. We've got two friends who have written a book, John Donovan and Karen Zucker. They asked a question once. They're both journalists, very well known. And they asked a question, who was the first autistic man? Well, lo and behold, the first person to ever have that moniker is still alive. And he's living in Mississippi, and his community got it right. And they have written a book about his story and also the things that have been happening across America with autism. And it was up for a Pulitzer. But the thing that's interesting is that they've just had a movie made of this, and it's been in film festivals. It's been winning several different awards. And you'll see 4 of them listed on the screen as we go into it, but there's many more since then. But it talks about a community that got things right. Now, I know St. George and surrounding areas and all of Utah can get it right. But let's have a look at this and look for this film as it comes up. And it may be in general distribution at some point, but it is in film festivals. Now, please take a look. And thank you so much for being with us.
I've always known Don. I don't remember not knowing Don.
We knew that Don was a little different,
but what it was, we didn't know.
He is the first person to be ever diagnosed with autism.
At the time, autism wasn't even a word.
I had heard that the first person diagnosed with autism might still be alive and living in this small town in Mississippi.
Good to see you.
Hey, Shelby Welby. Hey, Nat the cat.
Well, hi, Don, darling.
Hey, Chad with the plant.
Stop resisting! Get the cups.
Hey, can I go, please?
I only knew that I was different and that different was bad. You're weird, you're a freak, you're a retard, you're a loser, you're ugly. These were the things that I heard on a daily basis.
Go, go, go!
In my research study, every Black family that I've met with has asked a similar question. How do we keep our children safe? How do we fix this situation so that our children won't die?
Toasty? Yeah.
Like that.
Autism is a little different. Your brain works a lot differently than most people. Hello. Hi, Karen. Hello.
Do you get any kind of support from anybody?
Not really. It's just me. Nobody's going to do what I do.
So you just can't die?
Right. It's got to be immortal.
Don's got some odd behaviors and some eccentricities, but he's our guy.
I was just so drawn to him and this community. I wanted to figure out, how did they get it right? Because they really did get it right.
What a great documentary, and it's really resonating in communities all over the place. So, and as many of you know, Utah has one of the highest rates of autism. So that's another reason why it's really important for us to dive in and be part of the solution. I'm so excited to introduce our next guest. She is one of the foremost authorities on housing for adults with autism anywhere, and she's part of the Madison House Autism Foundation, Desiree Kamika. She has made it her mission to understand, represent, and share the broad range of autism-friendly community development opportunities and inclusive housing needs. As the director of our Autism Housing Network for over a decade, Desiree has helped guide more than 250 inclusive housing projects across the country and works with community leaders daily to build more inclusive communities. She is a sought-after expert on neuro-inclusive housing models. In fact, United Nations invited her to come speak. She co-authored and co-edited the groundbreaking community development report entitled A Place in the World, which is being praised for changing the landscape and defining new markets for housing for neurodiverse adults. And we'll put that link to the report in the chat box so you can take a look. Desiree has a truly unique knowledge of the policies and funding, planning, and the collaboration that is needed to create these inclusive communities. And best of all, she shares it widely. Desiree, thank you so much for joining us on this conversation with all the leaders in Southern Utah. Hi, Desiree.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome Southern Utah. And it's incredible when communities can come together, one, recognize that there is a problem, and then be able to work together collaboratively to solve that problem. That's exactly what we want to do in Utah. So thank you, St. George and other areas of Southern Utah, for coming together, at least initially, and hopefully more so as we move forward. You know, I love the In a Different Key video because it shows what happens when a community can wrap their arms and their hands around an individual. You see, Don should have been institutionalized, but he wasn't. And his life is so much better for that. And it doesn't look like John is just put into a program, right, for those specialists to take care of him all day, but that he really is truly part of his community. And that's what we want. We want person-centered solutions where an individual is at the center of the circle of support and they get the support that they need to go be part of their faith community, the transportation to be able to get to their job. If something happens and they become in trouble, the first responders in their community can recognize that maybe we can support this person a little differently because they realize him or her is on the autism spectrum. I can tell you right now, as the director of the Autism Housing Network, we get contacted weekly by an adult on the autism spectrum who is experiencing homelessness. Individuals are ending up on the streets and they're being displaced from their community when they can't find affordable, accessible housing. But that's just one part of the puzzle, right? And that's why this blueprint is really looking at the entire community development. Because when we think about accessibility, oftentimes those who are in the housing industry or in community development, they think about someone who uses a wheelchair, which is really important and valuable to all of us to have those curb cuts. But for individuals on the autism spectrum, a major barrier to participation could be sensory overload or feeling overwhelmed by having to meet new people in new places. And so creating autism-friendly cognitive accessibility as part of that kind of diversity narrative can really help open the doors for a lot more opportunities in the future. Utah really can become the blueprint for local communities, but it has the capacity to change things nationally. Because when we come into your local community, we're going to want to ask your local leaders. And this is in working with other autism organizations, of course. Do you have first responder training? Are your housing programs designated and prioritized for people with autism or other intellectual and developmental disabilities? If somebody goes missing who's an adult, are they going to be able to access support to find that person? Is our transportation system accessible? These are all kind of different community development areas that need to be addressed. And so we're going to do that first with a survey, right? And then after we do that initial baseline survey, because we want this process to be as data-driven as possible, then we're going to bring together the autism community. And we're going to ask you similar questions. And this is, again, many of you are going to be part of reviewing the drafts of these surveys. Where are the gaps in our communities? How can we do better? What are the tools that we can work together to develop to make it easier for local leaders to plan for accessibility in the future? And then once we get that kind of broad overview community development data, we can start thinking about, okay, where are we going to spend our limited time and resources to develop tools? How can we move policy to create incentives or at least remove barriers to being able to create solutions? And then the third process of market analysis is going to be really focused on that housing piece. Because the reality is, if someone can access services, finds their perfect faith community, finds their dream job, but can't access affordable, accessible housing, they're going to be displaced into that next empty bed of a group home or adult foster care or a host home, right? Or they're going to experience homelessness. And so it's really important that we do address this. And we do this through a process called the Empowering Communities Initiative, where we educate local consumers and show them what's happening, what's the innovation happening in Utah and other places. And then we survey them on their needs and their preferences. We bring that data on preferences and needs to the local leaders, and we say, okay, how are we going to meet the demand so that people don't have to be displaced from our community? And then from there, we continue to write out that blueprint. And hopefully, by doing this in multiple areas across Utah, we'll be able to see that diversity, the broad spectrum of solutions that are needed for a broad spectrum of people on the autism spectrum. So I'm so excited that Utah is going to be the first in the country to have an Autism After 21 blueprint, and we're going to be working together to make it happen. As with everything at the Madison House Autism Foundation, we feel very strongly that autistic voices are driving a lot of what we do. And so we wanted to create space in the program to allow autistic voices to talk about what are their dream jobs in community. I look forward to chatting with you in just a moment during our Q&A, but enjoy this video as we move forward in the program.
I could teach history in a way that changes the world.
Right now, I'm considering neurology or emergency medicine.
In special education with kids on the autism spectrum.
I would love to help people with communication. I love learning about people. People learn about themselves through history. I could teach history in a way that changes the world.
He said he wants a candy store where all with disabilities can work and gain more independence.
I want to be a doctor. Right now, I'm considering neurology or emergency medicine. And then eventually, I want to do overseas medical missions in developing countries to help bridge healthcare gaps there.
My dream job is to work in special education with kids on the autism spectrum, which will be the ideal job for me, and giving back because I was in that same situation myself. So that's my dream job.
My dream job would definitely to be
to incorporate autism advocacy into my legal career at some point. So hopefully to eventually become some sort of lobbyist to create legislation focusing on autistic adults and their access to affordable housing and accessible housing, as well as employment. A lot of us struggle to get employment, and I think it's because of a lot of misconceptions people have about autism. So really just breaking that barrier and educating corporations and other places of what it is we can offer and how with the proper accommodations, we are really an asset to the workforce.
So I'm actually working and living my dream job. I started out as a dental assistant, worked as a clinical research scientist. I really was fired from a lot of jobs, or not just fired, but I quit. I couldn't hold a job. And then I found the mental health field. Fell in love, so I do therapies now and advocate work, and that's what I love, man. This is where I want to stay.
Acting. I'm a bit rusty at it. I guess acting or modeling or something like that would be a dream job.
Many years ago, I always said that I had a dream of maybe working in the computer industry, in the tech industry. I mean, there was a time when I was always a master at upgrading computers, building computers. And now today it's more about understanding software, not necessarily coding it, but understanding how it works and try to get other people to understand it.
I wish I could just retire and fish at this point, but I think I would enjoy being a linguist.
So enlightening, isn't it? A lot of you know all about this topic, and some of you, maybe this is the first time that you're hearing about it. I'm kind of new to understanding. I had no idea that there really weren't services for those after the age of 21 on the autism spectrum. So this is something that's why I wanted to get involved with Madison House Autism Foundation. Now is when we would like to open things up for Q&A, would like to have a discussion. It's very important that this is very specific to St. George, Cedar City, the rural areas, southern Utah. So we do want to have your questions and be able to open this up to discussion. So please feel free. I'm going to put this on the gallery mode so that I can see all the faces all at once. And either raise your hand or get my attention somehow, or put it in the chat box and I can read the question. We already have a great question here from Misty Higgins. And she says, and I have to kind of open this up. So what does the housing idea look like? So, and Desiree, with the hundreds that you have done, I mean, would love to dive right into what does that model look like?
Yeah, and I'm going to throw it right back. It depends on what people want, what the model looks like in a rural community. I live in a rural community in Colorado. There's no way we're going to have a 6-story apartment building get built in my community. So housing solutions look very different in my community than they do in Denver, right? Which is another metropolitan area. And that's the importance of the market analysis, that Empowering Communities initiative, is that we're able to really explain the differences, provider controlled versus consumer controlled, service delivery options like shared living, remote support, rotational staffing. A lot of diversity in housing solutions is also featured in the A Place in the World report. We actually have about 15 different properties that all look very, very differently and operate very differently within the report, kind of described. So that's one way that you can kind of see what some of the housing diversity could look like. In terms of funding streams, we've been able to use these market analysis that we've developed, the data that we've collected, and we've brought them to housing authorities. And what we often find is that the state housing and finance authority, the affordable housing industry, has no idea that people with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities can live in their own home and access services. that they should be developing affordable, accessible housing for this population. And so in terms of funding, we can start to educate the Housing and Finance Authority and the public and those who are dealing with some of the funding streams and the innovation funding, and see if we can start to have a targeted ask, right? So that we are developing housing that is both cognitively and physically accessible as well as affordable. So I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. And we're going to get a lot of information as we send out these surveys. So please be watching for that survey. It won't come immediately, but we will be sending that to you just to understand that baseline, to know which direction to go. All right. Any other questions? Okay. I have a question. Jalen, I would love to understand better, the types of people that are typically contributing to the solution. Who are the people that really need to be involved? From what kind of is business relevant? How do we bring all that together?
Let me divide it kind of in two areas again. Those that are the community leaders that are in positions either by birth, by employment, by skills, by election, by the different types of things that you do, you can have a huge amount of influence, even if you don't have someone in your family that is on the spectrum. I'm looking at Kevin Smith here with Tuacahn. And sometimes there's things that can happen in the theater arena where there can be sensory-friendly performances where the sound isn't too loud and there's not pyrotechnics of different types that could be disturbing. Or there might be certain areas that would be better for people to sit for different types of things. Sometimes it doesn't need to be a separate performance. But there's things in the arts that can make a difference, because we have to think about life, not just during the work days, but we have to think about what happens after 5 o'clock and on weekends. What do you like to do? Other people want to have friends and opportunities to engage. So you all can do that. Now, who else is important with the autism community? The individuals, first of all, the parents and the providers, because we need to have more caring, trained people. And that's one of the reasons we're looking at universities and want to have things happening at universities for two areas. One, to have positive college experiences. One young lady who was talking about being a doctor, she's moving forward with higher education and is going to do that very, very well. There's a lot of people of that nature. There are other people that are not. But we also need to educate at the same time people who will be working with our adults and having those professions. And there's a lot of professions that I think need to exist that don't exist. So it takes many different quadrants of the population, and there's a lot of opportunity in here. And also, I'd like to challenge people that are builders, because there's an opportunity for public-private types of situations and maybe things where you could build aspects of your business. I think there's some marketing ideas out there.
Excellent. Thank you. One of the things that startled me a little bit when I first started learning more about this on why I should be involved, because I don't necessarily have someone in the family. And when I realized it was really a community issue, when I understood that those who have caregivers who pass away, they're highly susceptible to becoming homeless. That becomes a community issue.
It does.
So it's critical that we address this as a community.
And there's so many things within the community. There is a story that I came across just a few weeks ago about a mother who had a 27-year-old daughter, and the 27-year-old daughter wandered, which happens sometimes with people with autism, that they tend to wander. It doesn't happen with everybody, but it happens with some, but enough that we need to be aware of it. And she called the local authorities saying, my daughter has disappeared. She has wandered and I need help in finding her. And they said, we can't help you because our local statute says that we can help look for children that are on the autism spectrum. And there was no room for adults. Well, 2.5 days later, her daughter was found drowned, because of a phrase in a local statute that did not include adults. So when we ask about what difference can it make, what things can be done, sometimes it is just in our wording, sometimes it is in local policy, sometimes it is in larger policy. But some of these things can be life and death issues.
Mm-hmm. Misty Higgins.
I saw your comment in the chat. Oh, sorry, Charlene.
No, go ahead, Desiree. Go. Yeah.
And Misty in the chat says, as a community leader, if we have someone that has certain needs, can we reach out to this foundation to help educate those who need educating? So at the very basic level, yes, we help people all the time. We get contacts daily from the Autism Housing Network from people all over the country who need help. Ideally, though, there would be a Southern Utah specific resource that we could direct people to. So it is more localized. And that's really part of the goal of this whole initiative.
I was asking because I am in Hilldale, and that's like on the border of Arizona and Utah. And we're actually starting a day program here because there isn't any services here at all. And so I know that there will be a lot of people on the spectrum in our, in our center, but I guess that's something that I'm very interested in is, like if they want to work at the grocery store to help them kind of, and I guess I feel inadequate of teaching them myself. So as a company, as a business, I would like, some more expertise on reaching out to the community because I want our program to be community based. And so helping like educate the community and figuring all that would be awesome, actually.
That's why we're doing exactly what we're doing. Yeah. We need the whole community educated and brought forward. And maybe some of the things that you want to learn are things that have been mastered in other communities, and they may be doing something similar. And let's try to pair you together. We don't want to be providers. We want to be connectors, and we want to look at the large picture. So there may be some answers. Now, I want to introduce someone here, Shmiku Martinez. She is our new state director, and she will be reaching out to many of you, and she will help try to connect. And if there are some of these questions, but we hope that within each community, you'll be able to have the training things. So there will be other people like yourself that can be trained by others. And then it can perpetuate itself and that knowledge base can continue. But it's an excellent question, Misty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And exactly what we've been talking about on the need for having this blueprint, because all the other states do not have this. That's why we had to document this and formalize this, and then we'll share it. And you guys are all part of this information gathering that will be shared around the country. And thanks, Desiree, for including your email right there.
And I see somebody that's just come on, Charlene, Jason. And I wanted to have a little bit more information because this is one of the interesting bright spots too. Jason, can you take maybe about a minute and a half and just mention briefly what Techies for Life is doing in St. George?
Oh, great.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. We had a fire alarm situation, which is actually not that uncommon with the students I work with. We run a vocational school in St. George called Techie for Life, and it is specifically for neurodiverse young adults, ages 17 to 30, whatever, if they fit. It's kind of an adulting program, lots of life skills, lots of belonging. We don't do a ton of treatment. We do a lot of mentoring and giving them opportunities to build evidences that they're enough. We are all private pay. We took the approach as a business. My son was our first student. He's 28 now and he's doing really well. Individual, he's pretty autonomous and self-reliant at this point. But we just took the approach of what do the neurodiverse young adults need who are capable of being independent and creating not just living off of Social Security income, but those who really could get a job and maintain a job in an area that was an actual career or profession based, whether it's education, college, university, or tech school, trade school, or just apprenticeships. And we help find a way and a path forward for them. We just decided, what do they need to do that, and how much would it actually cost us? And we hung up a shingle about 5-6 years ago now, and we're still in business and we're doing really well. There's a lot of people that are willing to pay whatever it costs to get their kids the help they need, but there's far more that can't afford what we do. But what we do is probably cutting edge, because we can afford to do what it is they need, not just what does the latest government grant give us, or what does health insurance offer that comes and goes and dries up. I think there's been a lot of really important, good programs out there, well-meaning programs. They almost all go under or bankrupt because their income source goes away because it's based in government insurance or donations, things like that. So we took a straight business approach, and
There's
anyway,
a lot
that's what we do.
In what he's been saying, there are several gems. If you're interested in that type of thing, or other people, this is the type of thing that we need to connect the wisdom. If somebody's starting a business, if they're a provider in other ways, and what the needs are and how they're being addressed. I compliment you. Thank you, Jason. I'm so glad that you were able to get past fire alarms.
They were just cooking dinner.
Oh, no. Oh, that's scary. Well, thank you, everyone. This is just the start. This is a 3-year pilot, right? So we will be following up with you in a couple weeks, maybe with the survey. That's to gather the baseline data.
And I didn't mention one other thing. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to catch you before you end. There is one other thing that we will be doing. We want to ask you to take 5 minutes a month and read the information that we will send you over email. We will tell you about other things that are happening in Utah. So you may get other ideas, because you may have a question like Misty and all of a sudden see that somebody is doing something that you want information on. Let's see if we can connect you. There will be information about autism in general, and then how you can bring people into the boardrooms and make decisions within your community to affect change. And if you'll give us 5 minutes a month on a regular basis and just read those things, you will know a whole lot more in the process of a year, 2 years, or 3 years. So please commit to that. And then we will have a few other things with our surveys as well. Thank you, Shireen. I didn't mean to disturb you.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's exactly what we need to hear. So thank you all for being part of this, leading out in this. And in fact, I want to shout out to Jordan Hess, who is representing the St. George Chamber of Commerce, because, the chamber can really take a leadership role here. And, so just a little challenge there, Jordan. We would love to.
And Kenny Miller has stepped forward. He's been so wonderful in pulling a lot of things together. Thank you, Kenny.
Yes. And Jordan just added, yay, Jordan. We just did a ribbon cutting for a new place called the E-Learning Center in St. George. Yay. They are a center for people on the spectrum. Awesome. Yay. So hopefully they're focused also on adults. I don't know yet. So Jordan, I want to hear more about that. That's really awesome. So anyway, guys, normally we would have a breakfast for all of you. We would have done this in a breakfast, but under the circumstances, it's Zoom, but we'll have to do a breakfast some other time. So thank you very, very much for part of this. And thank you to our honorary board and our advisory board for assisting so much with getting the word out. We're excited to have Sumiko help coordinate efforts. Over the next 3 years, we're going to coordinate and collaborate and inform and educate and really involve everybody so Utah can take a leadership role in the country.
And Jonathan has been absolutely amazing, who has put these videos together.
Yes, he's very, very good at this. Absolutely. Yeah, he's behind the scenes, but darn, he's good. So thank you to everybody. As we leave, if you can stay on, we're going to show you one of Jonathan's videos of a Utah adult with autism. So hopefully you can watch that. But thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating, and we'll see you later. Thank you.
Connor is a beautiful, beautiful person. He does not judge anybody. He's funny.
He's charismatic. He loves to meet new people.
Connor is social.
People want to be around him. People want to hear him laugh and joke. He's a people person.
Connor, are you ready for breakfast?
You get some cereal?
Connor hasn't had a lot of peace growing up.
Good job.
He has had a lot of ups and downs over the years, a lot of frustration because he can't tell us what he wants or he needs. And we're so grateful the last year and a half or so, we've been able to really see his personality come out.
I think it takes Connor a lot of time to really trust people. And when he can be in a system where he's like right now, where he's had the same teachers for 3 or 4 years, he has a strong foundation to base his learning and his development off of. But the current system continues for a couple more months and then it's over.
2 socks. Then you can get your toy, okay?
It took us probably 10 different tries to find that setting where Connor could progress and be happy. There were some where he would get so stressed he would hurt himself. He would bite chunks out of his hand. He would hit his head through the wall.
You get your shoes on?
As Connor ages out of the school and we're looking at other options, I'm worried that we won't be able to replace that.
Have a kiss. Love you. Be good. Good morning, buddy. Morning, Connor.
All right, guys, let's get started. Let's see how you're feeling today. Jordan, Bush, how are you feeling?
Almost been anticipating this moment since I came. Like, oh my gosh, you graduate in 5 years, and then what? The support's not the same, and you know that. In the back of your head, you just think, what are you gonna do for these 5 hours a day?
Connor, how are you feeling?
How are you feeling? Happy.
I'm so glad. All right, we got 8 happy people here this morning.
I've kind of thought about the metaphor of the cliff a lot. I feel like we've taken several tandem jumps off the cliff, right? Me and Connor and his parents and all these people that understand him. And we're taking chances and doing things that aren't easy for Connor all the time because he's comfortable and safe here. And then once he turns 22, I kind of feel like then you send him out on his own, whether he has his own parachute or not. He's not going to be successful in the community or in a workplace if he doesn't feel safe.
1. 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Some Coke?
When we're not providing that same support, I feel like as a society, we're inadvertently communicating that their goals and dreams aren't as important as other people's.
What did you eat, Connor? Good job, Connor.
I wish more people would come into our school and watch our kids and see how capable they are. There's still a huge stigma that our students are a throwaway society. Connor belongs here. He has every right to be here. He contributes. Connor's going to be with us for a really long time. It's our responsibility to rally around and support Connor's family in raising him up to be the best that he can be. What's going to happen next? We have to learn to be able to incorporate adults with autism into our community. We have to provide jobs for them. We have to pay the people better that are going to support them and live with them and care for them.
What would you like, Connor? Pardon? Coke, please.
My fear is that he will go through a ton of support workers from program to program, and nobody will get to know him like I do.
See you tomorrow? Okay, bye, bud.
Right now, Connor has 45, 50 plus hours a week of support. They have speech therapists and behavior supports and teachers, and then when they turn 22, all that structure just goes away. Even if he's in a day program offering full hours of support, instantly the hours he has support will be cut in half. The other thing that's so hard about the supports that Medicaid waivers offer are they're unpredictable. What's offered today may not be offered tomorrow.
Hey Connor, where are we going?
Boardwalk, that's right.
Adults like Connor make our lives better, and they have so much to offer. He is truly a gift to my family. Every week, Connor shows us something new that he could do that we didn't know before. Nobody knows what his potential is. Nobody knows how far he could go and how much he could still learn.
Connor's just as valuable as he's ever been. He really wants to remain an active member of society. Just because these people are getting older, there's no reason that they don't deserve that same kind of support.
We know that at some point he's going to be living on his own. We don't know what that means yet. I worry that he's going to be thrown into a situation where people will see Connor as a job. I want him to be someplace where he can express himself and is always treated like a person.